going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, Mass Media Hysteria. I'm your host. My name is Court. With me, as always, is Chris.
How's it going, everyone?
And making his triumphant debut, his triumphant return to the show, Andris.
Howdy.
And here's what today's show is going to look like. We've got a few topics that we're going to go through, as we've been doing for the last few weeks. Today, we are going to do a full spoilers review of the finale, episode 6 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was titled One World, One People. We're not going to hit every beat of the episode, but we are going to talk open spoilers, so just be aware of that. After that, just to keep it in the same vein, the other day news dropped that the MCU are going to be making a Captain America Force. We'll talk briefly about that. There's not a whole lot to say. Then we are going to go into a full spoilers review of the latest Mortal Kombat film, which we have all now watched. And then finally, Andris has a discussion question, I should say, that he wants to pose at the end of the show. Andris, do you want to tell us what that is?
Maybe I will, maybe I won't. No, I will. It's about which video game we feel is primed for a film adaptation.
All right. So we're going to get started. Of course, as always, I just want to say we're glad that you're here. We hope you'll give the channel a subscribe, maybe drop a like on this video, share it around, all that good stuff. Comment below. I read all the comments. I respond to as many as I can. So don't think your comments are going unread. So we're going to start again, like I said, with our review of the finale of The Falcon and Winter Soldier, One World, One People. Andris, let me throw it to you first before we get into specifics. What were your overall thoughts on this episode?
I liked it.
All right. You're a man of few words. Yes. Chris, I posed the same question to you.
It was a bit of a mixed bag for me. There were things that I quite liked about this episode. There were things that I really didn't like about this episode. Kind of similar to WandaVision, the MCU's TV shows for me are now 2 for 2 as far as somewhat kind of lackluster finales.
Okay. I'm kind of there with you on this one. I was very mixed on this episode. Like you said, there are things in here that I really liked. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of moments that were really powerful. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of stuff that I found kind of dull, kind of dumb. And there was one moment that just straight up pissed me off, but we'll get to that. Ooh. So coming in hot. So where do we want to start? You had the little list.
I have a list. I'll read them out. So number one of things that I think we should talk about is Sam's new suit and big punchy super heroics.
Right.
So the big thing right off the top is that Sam coming in hot, just like Court's hot takes, and he has a brand new suit from Wakanda. Gentlemen, what did we think of the suit?
Andris, why don't you go first, because I'm drinking.
Enjoy the drink. It was very nice. I liked it. I like how they've led up to introducing the new Captain America. That whole arc in general, hell yeah, it was bold. And
right on.
It didn't pull any punches. I'm kind of tying it in together with the suit, because the suit was great. The application of him as Captain America was very interesting. Mm-hmm. Working with, he's not a super soldier, but using the wings. It was very action packed and fun, and I like it.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on the suit. It looks a little bulky to me. My big thing, one thing I really did like is there's the A, and then there's sort of like almost like a wing sort of crest thing. That was cool. Mm-hmm. I didn't like the piece that comes up the back of his neck. I know it's totally comics accurate, but it just looked weird. My biggest thing was how white it was, just because I guess I'm used to seeing him in the dark colors, but also for me, and maybe it's because I'm Canadian, maybe you guys will have a different perspective, but when I think of the American flag, of the 3 colors, the white is the one that stands out to me the least. Like, it's really a red and blue kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So to sort of go all in on the white with just little accents of red and blue, I don't know, that was weird to me.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Yeah.
I'm kind of similar to the entire episode, a little mixed on it. I think that the design from like the neck down, I think works. However, I don't know what it is, if it's just the material that was given. It just looks, like you said, bulky. It looks bulky and kind of cheap. It kind of reminded me of Captain America's Steve Rogers' first suit in the first Avengers, where it was kind of like the prototype version of it, where it just kind of looked like this weird cloth material before, like, eventually in the later films it becomes much more sleeker, kind of like a better design. Like, I think
Right.
by Endgame that suit was just awesome, and it was kind of like this rubbery latex thing. um but I like the design. I can see where you're coming from when it comes to the color scheme. I think I kind of understand it. I mean, because Captain America prior, Steve Rogers, was mostly blue, and I think that having a hero just clad completely in red, I think he was already like that as the Falcon.
Right.
A red was pretty much his color scheme. So it's like, what color, remains? White. And so it is kind of like contrasting to what Steve Rogers had before. So overall, it was cool. Andres, I agree with you. Like, it's less about the suit itself and more about the whole arc of Sam coming into the Captain America moniker and stepping into those shoes. I really enjoy it. I think that's kind of one of the strengths that the entire series had. Um, yeah, yeah, and I mean, with all the sort of the connotations and kind of the heaviness that comes with him wearing or becoming this idol.
Yeah.
So from there, like, as I said, there's just a bunch of big punchy super heroics. It's the requisite action-packed MCU finale. Nothing really actiony stood out to me as like, oh hell yeah. However, I will say, and I don't know if you guys picked up on it as well, something that I did enjoy was them actually being like doing superhero stuff, like
Yes.
90s and early 2000s kind of superheroics, where almost every action scene eventually resulted in Sam having to save the lives of people from like a falling helicopter, Bucky having to save the lives of people from a burning van. And the rest of the series leading up to this has been very like espionage, spy, kind of thrillery, and this one felt like old school, almost kind of like Sam Raimi Spider-Man super heroics, and that's something that I kind of enjoyed. I like seeing our heroes put themselves in danger to save people, not just beat the shit out of bad guys, but to save people. What did you
Right.
guys feel about the
Uh,
whole kind of actiony sequences?
I guess I'll jump in on this one. I got two things. First one, I do want to go just a little bit back before I go on. The reason they made the suit so bulky, I can understand it. He's not a super soldier, so it was extra, super soldiers, they're way more resilient than us. That's why I kind of forgive the bulkiness of it.
That's a fair point.
But going on, this was definitely the introduction of like the new Captain America, which is why they were building up like, hey, look how heroic he is. Look at all the things he's been. But it wasn't like, it was because it was right for the character to do it. And then he, it was just giving that first impression to the world.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, like, the big reveal when he sort of came through the window and he said, what are you supposed to be or whatever? And like, I'm Captain America. I was like, hell yeah, you are. Absolutely. Like, that totally worked for me. The whole, like, everything to do with the helicopters, I thought was really cool. Again, we're gonna harp on this again today, but the shaky cam. But
Yeah.
that was some really cool stuff when he got the female senator or whatever who had the flight training, that whole plan. That was really cool. When he took down the other helicopter and just sort of went down on the bridge and the wings folded around him to block it off into the water. That was really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And I will say, and I've gone on and on about how I just don't like the Carly character, but that scene where Sam calls her, or not Sam, sorry, excuse me, Bucky calls her and he's trying to talk her down and saying like, I've been down this road, I know how it ends. I thought that was a good little moment.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, I'll get to Carly. I not a fan. I do not care about that character, and I'll get to it. Yeah, like I said, I like the fact that they were saving people, and it's a cool application of we've seen Sam as the Falcon before with the wings and everything, so we're used to kind of him doing stuff with the wings flying and kind of defending himself, but it seemed much more fluid this time. It with the usage of the shield as well, it's a new kind of fighting style that's unique for him and unique from Steve Rogers before him.
Right.
When it comes to a lot of the hand-to-hand combat stuff, that was just shaky cam. It was not really good. I thought that the fight scenes kind of were lackluster. Leading into another thing that I found to be lackluster was the big, shocking, no one could possibly see this coming reveal that Sharon Carter is the power broker. Okay, who cares? One, everyone saw that coming. I'll get you guys' opinions, but I'm assuming everyone saw that coming. And two, no one gives a shit, which really bugs me because when Sharon first was brought back, like in episode 3 or something, I was like, hey, cool. She's back. What are they going to do with her? She seems kind of like feistier this time. I'm interested.
Oh, she had that killer fight scene.
Yeah, and but by she did. I forgot about that. She was knifing people, so she was cool. But then in this, she not only was the reveal lackluster, but when she was being villain, she was doing villainy stuff, like the way she was talking, just like, listen here, Carly. Like, and I just didn't buy it. I'm like, you're not a good villain. I don't find you threatening, and I liked you better as a more relatable character. But you trying to be the big bad, I don't buy it.
Well, and also just the way it was revealed too was so just like she sees Carly and Carly's like, I expected more of you. I would expect more from a power broker. I was like, okay, like you could have introduced it in a way that wasn't like that obvious. That was a bit much.
For me, I watched episodes 3 through 6 yesterday in succession.
Okay.
And I didn't like Sharon's reintroduction from the start, to be honest. It was like, oh, here's another character from a Civil War. Oh,
yeah.
And it felt like an awkward cameo to me. And so I had no investment in her character. So when they revealed that, I was like, oh, okay.
So
anyway, yeah, why? And I agree with you guys. I don't buy into her being a villain at all. I'm just like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She had a bond layer with like stolen artwork.
Right. No, and I mean, obviously there are going to be implications going forward in the MCU with that character, but I unless they do something drastic with it, I don't know that I care.
Yeah, her character has just never been given much. Even like in Civil War, I don't remember much aside from like she kissed Steve Rogers,
which eventually was technically her uncle.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, because her aunt is Peggy, and then he retroactively married Peggy.
Right.
So that was some weird incest. Way to go, MCU. I know Kevin Feige was a big fan of Star Wars. No.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
that's possible. I don't know. The man.
I mean, he's got a whole big manga collection. But it's I was gonna say Star Wars, and he's talked openly about like, I had plenty of characters in Phase 2 of Marvel get their arms cut off as a reference to Empire Strikes Back. So maybe in his own little roundabout way, he's like, I can't wait to write myself in a hole where 2 characters kiss, and then I'm like, let's make them related. Fuck it.
Why not?
Yeah. One last thing I'll say before moving on. I don't know if this is just because I'm getting older, but I'm finding like certain little elements of shows or movies to be more interesting than like what we're given.
Yes.
An example of things that like when I was a kid, I wouldn't even have thought of or thought as boring. But the whole thing about Sharon living in this foreign country and selling like duplicate artwork, I'm just kind of like, that's interesting. I want to know more about that. Fuck her being the, super villain. Like, what's the black market art trade deal like?
Right.
Anyway, just
in a comic book universe.
Yeah, right? No. Yeah. Anyway.
That is a bit of a problem though, when they're like, yeah, the meat and potatoes is this person's making superheroes. You're like, yeah, I don't care. What about this?
Right.
Who's forging it? Did she forge it? Anyway. Next up on the list, I have John Walker. Not all bad. So in this one, John Walker comes back. There was a whole there was a mid-credit scene or post-credit scene last week that was like, oh shit, he's building his shield, which even at the time was sort of like, okay, well, it's not vibranium, it's just made out of scrap metal, it looks like. So he's making a shield. We thought
it gets taken to task in this episode for sure.
It's very metaphorical. Like the last time we see it, I'm just going to be jumping around a bit when talking about it. So he shows up in the same costume. Court, I think you and I were speculating that he might also get like a costume revamp before going to this final battle? No, just his regular costume, and he has the shield. And this leading into him being not all bad is he uses the shield and he's still trying to do the Captain America super heroics, but it gets to a point where he's chasing Carly down, the person who actually killed Lamar, and he wants to beat the shit out of her. He's still like hell bent on revenge. And it's this whole kind of contrived, but it's contrived in a Sam Raimi Spider-Man sort of way, where he gets to a crossroads and he sees Carly running away, and he can chase after her, but he also sees this van full of innocent people that's about to fall off a hell of a ledge and die. And he does the right thing. He runs over there and he grabs on to the car. And as he does that, we see a shot of the shield tumbling down, and it crashes, and it's all crumpled and beat. And it's, showing how he is throwing away the Captain America persona. And he's not doing it under the guise of like, I need to be this ideal image, I need to be this guy. He throws away those expectations and does the right thing.
He kind of throws away like the pomp and circumstance of it all, just to save the day, to save the people.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this: did that change how you viewed John Walker? Because this season has been very up and down with him. He started off like, oh, he doesn't seem like that bad of a guy. He's kind of a bad guy. Well, he's kind of so. Before I kind of give my opinions, did that work? Did this feel like too much of like a beeline from what has been led up to him? Or did you feel like this was a natural progression of his character? Andris, I'm going to throw it to you first.
I found it refreshing. As I said, I watched episodes 3 through 6 back to back, the way you would normally watch an internet show until now, because now they're doing the weekly thing. And it was nice. I did get a little worried because I remember when we were talking about episode 2, the last time I was talking, I was like, hey, it'd be nice if he just was who he was and didn't have a villainous arc. I got worried when they did throw him into a dark path, but I like that they kind of swung it around and said, hey, maybe not though.
Yeah.
It was a nice subversion of what you expect from a superhero show, because it's more complicated now.
Yeah.
Which is
black and white.
Yeah, it's ironically closer to the comic books than the comic book shows, because comic book shows, they tend to be very, here's black, here's white, either you're good or bad. It was nice. I liked it.
Definitely.
I'll say a couple things. I did think he got some redemption. I did like that. The reveal of him behind the truck pulling it back, like that was really nice. And I said last week, there was that moment where he was squaring off with Bucky and Sam, and he said, like, we could have been a team. And in this episode, they kind of were. And I like that. And there's actually one shot, not to jump ahead, but it's a spoilers review anyway, so who cares? He tries to get the truck back. It doesn't all go his way. I think he ends up falling down or whatever. And then Sam ends up doing the rest to save it. But there's a shot as it's kind of revealed that Sam's doing it. We see Walker on the ground and like Bucky helps him up. Yeah. And it was such a little thing, but it really made me smile. That was such a great little moment without saying a word,
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree.
And I also thought, no, go ahead.
Hashtag A-team confirmed.
Excuse me.
Heard it here first, guys.
Yeah. I will also say that, and this was the other moment for me where the shaky cam just got completely out of hand. But when he was having the hand-to-hand combat with Carly, there were some really cool moves in that fight, particularly when she was like flipping through the bars and that scaffolding on the side of the road. Like that was so cool. And I could barely see what was going on. And that is one thing I'm not going to miss about this show, even though it's going to be in literally everything else we see from now until the end.
No, I hope not. Carrie Scoglin, she seems like a solid director. Action is just not her thing. And that's not a knock against her. I think that there are, so many other directors that are great directors when it comes to drama and character moments, but action just requires a different sensibility. And the shaky cam and the quick cuts, it just wasn't a lot of good hand-to-hand combat throughout the series, and especially not in this episode. One thing I'll say about about John Walker is that I liked the arc that he had. I liked, like you said, Andris, that I appreciated that he got dark for a bit. He, in the same way that he wasn't just goody two shoes, he had some grit to him. I was watching there's a shout out to this other channel, but I mean they're very popular, so people probably know about it. But Screen Rant has this ongoing series called Pitch Meetings, where essentially like it's kind of poking fun at certain upcoming movies and stuff like that, and where they talk about like weird inconsistencies.
And they're amazing, and you should all check
You
them
know,
out.
they're really funny actually. I did a poor job of selling it, but they're really funny. So shout out to them. But they did one recently for the finale of this, and it was essentially like he said something along the lines of like, oh well, John Walker did this and he redeemed himself from being a terrible person. And they're like, why is he a terrible person? It's like, oh well, he killed this person. He killed this guy. It's like, hasn't Sam and Bucky killed like a million other people as well? You're like, yeah, well, this guy was in public.
Right.
Okay. And so like I agree, the difference is that this guy was, you know, he was down, he was pleading for his life, so it was a brutal act, but it did kind of make me recontextualize and be like, you know what, John Walker's not that bad. I mean, even not as the Winter Soldier, just doing their super heroics thing, Bucky and Sam have killed so many people in this series alone. They've killed so many people. Granted, none of them had people pleading for their lives, so that's the distinction. So yeah, I bought into John Walker in his redemption arc, and I'm glad that he didn't go full evil. So I appreciated that. And jumping around a bit just to kind of cap off his entire arc, we later see him with Elaine again at the end, and he is finally given the comics accurate moniker of U.S. Agent.
Mhm.
And it's a simple redesign, but I dug it where, you know, it's the same costume, but it's just black and red. But he also has a side holster on his leg with the gun. And I was like, that's cool. That's kind of like a gunslinger vibe.
Right.
Not much to it. It's clearly just kind of setting up future stuff where Elaine from Seinfeld and Kurt Russell's son do shit. I don't know. Any thoughts on the U.S. Agent?
I mean, I thought it was a fine reveal. The scene seemed a little bit too happy for me, like given all that he just went through, and now he's just like, I'm back, baby. And I don't know. I felt like that scene might have worked a little bit better if there was still some sort of hesitation on his part. I don't know, something about
Yeah.
it just felt a little bit off. I
Mhm.
did like the suit reveal.
Yeah.
I did not like the suit reveal. I felt like it was shot badly because he was shot with the light behind him, so you couldn't actually see the black.
Mhm.
At least I couldn't. I was like, is it black? I don't see a difference here.
You're not wrong. The lighting of it was very soft in that, and so it didn't have this pop of like, oh, well, that's distinctly different,
Yeah.
color wise. For
Don't
some reason,
don't,
this. Oh, go ahead.
don't they at one point, doesn't like Elaine say the suit's black or something? I think that
No,
happened.
She
she
says
does.
it.
Yeah, she does say it. So you.
I didn't see it though. It was like,
Yeah, no, until she said it, I didn't realize it was a different suit. And then I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I sort of see it, but
Yeah, it was very softly lit. For some reason though, just the side holster, I don't know why it just kind of was like silhouette-y. I was like, I like that. I could see this working, but your guy's right. Like it was very softly lit. And considering that the blue he had before was like a dark navy blue, was like this
Yeah,
color,
right.
not that drastic of a change. But anyway, so that's the end of John Walker season wrap on him. So moving on, the next thing that I have is Carly sucks and then she dies.
allegedly.
Fuck, I fucking hope so. Sorry, Andres. I'm gonna throw it to you again. What do you think about Carly, and what do you think about her dying?
Okay. I don't think she's dead though. I don't. There's a rule with TV. If you don't see them physically die, they're not dead.
We did.
Good-
She got
No.
shot.
So they put her on a stretcher and put her in an ambulance and drove away. We didn't see her die. If they would have put like a sheet over her, okay, she's dead. No, we don't know what's going on.
I think you have a point there, but I do also think that from like everyone I've talked to about this series, like the biggest complaint is the Carly character. So I hope they
Yeah.
just pay attention to that and just don't bring her back.
Yeah, you definitely have a point, Andres. I think that maybe if they were like attempting to be like, oh well, we didn't put a sheet on her, so if there's good fan feedback, then we can bring her back. Similar to how Agatha Harkness, wasn't killed off at the end of WandaVision because people really seem to like that character, and I can imagine them bringing her back. Carly, though, I feel like if they just kind of check the fan, like the temperature in the room, or check the fan response, or like, yeah, she's done. Because who cares? Who cares? Court.
Worst.
Sorry.
Oh,
No. Say, you can say what you're saying.
Worst case scenario, they could just have a scene where they're like, we've been siphoning superhero or super strength DNA or super, what is it called? Super soldier, that's the word.
Mhm.
Siphoning super soldier DNA off of Carly, who's conveniently in a coma off screen, you know?
Right.
It's possible.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't put it past them.
Mhm.
So this was the scene that made me mad.
Ah.
So she throughout this entire episode, she makes the point that she's willing to die for her cause, and that she's kind of going into this sequence of events thinking she probably will die. And she was fine with that. And then she gets shot, and she's dying in Sam's arms, and she says, "I'm sorry." I was like, "Why? Why are you why the fact that you're now dying, which you were thinking was probably going to happen, why does that now completely change your entire worldview? Why are you now sorry for the things that you've done? This is ridiculous. I hate this." And then just to be super on the nose, they have two, not just one, but two like close-up shots of like the literal blood on her hands, and it was just a bit too much. But that was such a character reversal. She'd been so gung-ho in her ideology this entire thing, and now that she's dying, which she was imagining she that probably do, now she feels bad. I didn't get that. That felt so like, I understand you want to give this character some kind of arc, like now at the end of her life, now she gets it or something, but you didn't earn that at all. You just had her just flip. Like,
Yeah, like 10 minutes before that, she was like, we're gonna kill these hostages, and everybody else was like, whoa, are you really now? She's like, yeah, we're gonna kill these hostages and make a point. And then then she just dies, and you're like, oh, okay. It could have been handled better if they wanted to redeem her, or they could have just not redeemed her.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I really hated this character, and throughout the entire series, and this is not a knock against the actress Erin Kellyman. I think that she could probably do really great things with other material. It's just the character was bad, and this is the last time I'm gonna reference pitch meetings. I swear I have independent thoughts of my own. It's just that they really hit the nail of how I feel about the character on the head. Where essentially it was like, the running gag is like the guy giving the pitch was just like, yeah, describing all the terrible things that Carly's doing, like, and then she bombs this GRC building and people burn alive in it, and then at the end of this she kills all these other people, and then she says, I'm gonna just kill the hostages, and I'm gonna set this van full of hostages on fire to distract Bucky so I can get away, but we're going to make it ambiguous whether she's good or not. It's like, no. She's a fucking monster. She's a terrorist. And even, I'm sorry, but look, even jumping ahead a bit, Sam goes on to this little lecture about like the senators were like, this terrorist, are like, you got to stop calling them terrorists. And it's like, no, motherfucker, someone that uses murder and violence as intimidation is a terrorist. I don't care if your cause is good. You could believe, like, I just want to give my cause is that vanilla ice cream is really good, so I'm gonna bomb a hospital. It's like, it doesn't matter what your intentions are, what you do matters. So
but if you do that, like if you bomb a hospital, do I get vanilla ice cream?
Yes. Okay, so yeah. So
where might I subscribe to your newsletter?
That's right. It's at terrorist@aol.com. So I really didn't like her, and I really didn't like that they were trying to push like she's just misunderstood. I mean, obviously she went too far, but she was just pushed too far. And like, look, I understand that you want to have empathy, and the film, the show. I'm going to jump ahead to the next thing, which is related, but Sam giving these lectures to the senators on live television. It's like there is a difference, and there's a major issue when it comes to immigration and refugees in the world. Like in the past couple decades alone, it has been a major international complicated issue of what do we do with refugees, whether they're coming out of Syria, whether they're coming out awful conditions in Middle Eastern countries where they're pushed out and people are dying. What do you do? And that's sympathetic and that's empathetic, but at the same time, it's like, well, someone is mad about this situation, so they're going to turn and they're just going to bomb people. You've lost sympathy. Right. I'm sorry. I don't think that's a shitty thing to say. I mean, I know, comment down below. It's probably getting more controversial than we need to, but the show brings it up. And I think that the other people within her little group, they still seem to have a a moral center, and they seem to have a humanity where they were like, we don't want to kill
Right.
these hostages and shit. Anyway, what did you guys think about that? Just kind of leading into the speech as well. One, did you find, I know we talked about it, but did you find Carly's motives sympathetic at all? And two, did you think that Sam's speech worked? Whoever wants to take it first.
I'll jump in. I thought her motives were sympathetic and empathetic. I thought her methods were not.
Yeah. Okay.
The Sam monologue, I was kind of mixed on, because some of it was a little bit on the nose. And it did a really good job of trying to encapsulate all of the sort of themes and messages of this show, but some of it did feel like a commencement speech that he spent 2 weeks writing. So there's a little bit much in that way. That said, I think Anthony Mackie played the scene really, really well, and making a speech like that is a very Captain America thing to do. So it didn't bother me too much. I liked the scene overall. There were a couple of lines here and there where I was like, all right, okay, we get the point. But overall, that scene worked for me. Andres?
As far as Carly's motives and whether that worked for me, I think the problem is this show tried to be a little too ambitious. They tried to spin a little too many plates. And because they had too many plates going, things just, you can't do that. That's what I feel about that. As far as the speech though, I loved it. I was like, yeah, that's Captain America. He's doing Captain America things, but this is a different Captain America. This is a Black Captain America in the modern era, and it was very bold and unflinching, and it was great. I do agree with what you guys are saying. There was some glossing over, like saying don't call them terrorists. It's just like, are we talking about in general, or are we talking about the people who are blowing up buildings and killing hostages? It's
Right.
like, I understood what they were saying, but once again, it's like you're spinning one too many plates. It's not gonna work out. It worked for me though. So
yeah, no, very, very good points. I really agree with what you said, Andres. That the speech, taken by itself, I think it politically or like morally, I think it works in the sense that I agreed with everything that he was saying, but there was little moments that it felt much more like, hey, this works like on a general term, but maybe not specifically about Carly. The thing about because he says like, we got to stop labeling him as like terrorists, refugees, thugs, and the thugs to me, especially coming from him, reminded me of the way that a lot of kind of a conservative media report anytime there's any peaceful protest, Black Lives Matters or anything, they're just like these thugs, they're rioting, looting. And so like on a broad term, it's like, yeah, I mean, we got to stop labeling people as others, and we got to stop like treating them at an arm's length and kind of like be empathetic and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
On a specific point, like I said, Carly bombing people and burning hostages alive, I'm sorry, she personally lost sympathy for me. The Flag Smashers as a group did not. And I think that the like you said, Court, the kind of the motivation of they're just fighting for their lives. A lot of them are. And
they just want to have a place to belong,
Yeah. So the speech did kind of work for me, but I think that there was moments where it did feel a little bit corny, even for a Captain America, like, let me tell you the truth and justice.
Right.
It felt a little corny, but also it sort of ended a bit on some platitudes where it's just like the senators actually brought up, and I might get hate from in the comics from things I'm saying, but the senators actually brought up a good point. After Sam was going off, they were just like, okay, what do you suggest we do? We can't relocate these people because it would create this. What do you suggest we do? And Sam's just like, do better.
Right.
Thanks, Sam. You nailed it. Just, hey, everybody, just do better. Like, that doesn't mean anything. But the intentions were good. And I think morally it's right where you want it to be. That's what you want from Captain America, to be this empathetic, this defender of the downtrodden. So it worked in that regard. And when he brought up the elements of the walking contradiction, that is a black man wearing the stars and stripes. It's really powerful, and
Yeah.
that's something that I really liked, and I think that's the element leading into to the next thing, which was going to be about Isaiah Bradley. But it's everything between with Sam taking on the mantle of Captain America and the complex relationship of it being a black man in the United States taking it. That all worked for me, and I think that's some of the strongest stuff in the show.
Yeah.
Yep.
So next we have, I forget which order this is, whether it's Bucky apologizes to the Japanese father or Isaiah Bradley memorial.
I think it's Bucky. I think it's Bucky first.
Okay. So the next thing, this was set up way back in the very first episode. That
I think it was the second one, but yeah.
Was it? Okay.
I don't think Bucky was in the first episode. I think they waited till the second
You're
one.
right. Sorry, my bad. It was, the introduction of Bucky, where he essentially has this list of people that, he has to kind of make amends with to an extent during his, court-ordered therapy sessions. And one of them was this elderly Japanese man. At least I believe he's Japanese. I think they said so. Essentially we see him, and we find out that Bucky, as the Winter Soldier, killed his son early in this season, and he wants to tell him, because to the guy, he has no idea what happened to his son. His son just died. It's shrouded in mystery. He just wants some closure. And I felt like the entire season arc, some of it for Bucky, was leading up into this moment, and then it just happened. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on did this resonate with you guys? Did you feel like this was the cathartic way to end this storyline in Bucky's arc?
Andris, you want to go first?
No.
Okay. For me, like, this is a moment that I've been looking forward to since they introduced the idea in episode 2, and they really set it up in last week's episode with Sam saying you have to make amends, you got to make people feel better, and Bucky sort of walking off. You knew that that's what he was going to have to go and do. Mm-hmm. And to me, I said this to you, Chris, the other day, I don't think it was a bad scene. And they say leave them wanting more, and normally I get that that's a good thing. For me, it was, particularly after setting it up last week, it felt like such an afterthought, in that it was just, again, they were both good in the scene. I liked the performances. It just happened so quickly. Like, it felt like they were writing the finale and they were like, oh shit, we forgot to write the scene in. Okay, write something really quick. And it was like, you're a streaming show. You don't have to stick to any particular length. 30 more seconds in that scene, I think, could have gone a long way, because it made me a little sad seeing Bucky say it was me, I didn't have a choice, and seeing the old man's face. But I feel like that scene should have absolutely wrecked me emotionally, and it didn't. Andris?
I am in agreement. I didn't know it until you said it, though. I wanted to wait and see. Yeah, they didn't give that scene enough time to breathe, and so the emotional impact was just clipped. It was just, oh, here, checked off the list, and the list is gone. My bigger thing was the fact that, like, that what's her face, the therapist lady, okay, they didn't do anything with that character. I remember earlier on we were like, what's gonna happen with her? Does she have intention? They did nothing with that character.
Right.
She got a nice handbag, or it was a gift bag, and it was like, all right, cool. So just kind of checking off the things that should have been the emotional impact, as you said.
Right.
Yeah, it's a shame, because I was honestly looking forward to the scene, because I thought, going into it, and as soon as it started, I was like, this is gonna wreck me, because it had so much potential to be very powerful. And I know that, like, there's a lot of, like you said, Court, it's like sometimes you kind of want to leave people wanting more, and there's a lot of people say, like, less is more. I think less is more kind of mentality works when it comes to kind of spectacle, when it comes to human drama played out. And it is not a joke. I checked it. From the moment the old man opens the door to when Bucky leaves, it's less than 60 seconds. And it's less than 60 seconds. And you're like you said, Court, you I say minute, add another minute. I just because really what happens is Bucky tells him, the guy is starting to get emotional, and it cuts away. And it's like, no, what did this mean? Did the guy forgive Bucky? Did the guy hate Bucky? Is the guy just so overcome with emotion that, what happened? And they just didn't give it to us.
I didn't even necessarily need to find out what the man's reaction was or what his eventual decision on how to deal with it would be. But I feel like, Bucky says he was killed by a Winter Soldier. It was me. And he says, why? And he said, I had no choice. If you had given that scene just a little bit more time, like you said, Andres, to breathe, particularly like if we go back to that flashback scene in Wakanda where Sebastian Stan proved that he can show so many emotions on his face at the same time. If you say he was killed, pause, by a Winter Soldier, long pause, let him emote that guilt, that potential relief, that fear of how this man is going to react. Let him put that all out there on screen before saying it was me. I didn't have a choice. Why they didn't just let that scene go a little bit longer, I don't understand.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're right. It didn't even need any more dialogue after that, but just letting it see, like, what is that old man's reaction? I want to know what his reaction is. It doesn't have to be words, just how is it affecting him? And also, it's important to see it because this was the hurdle that Bucky had to get over. This was the last step that he did before he completed the list. And there was so much dread and apprehension leading up to it. For it to just cut away, it takes the impact out of it. And it's like, oh, he could have just done that at any time. But no, this was supposed to be difficult. It was supposed to be heartbreaking. And it was too quick.
I was actually just kind of picturing like another way you could have done it. Now, granted, the way the scene was done, they're both sitting down, but if you had them standing, or at least I think his name is Yuri. If you had him standing, right? Bucky says all of his thing, and then you just show the man take it in, hang his head, and just slowly sit down. And I think that wouldn't necessarily give you the answer about how he feels, if he's going to forgive Bucky, if he's going to hate Bucky, whatever it is. But that, I think, would have been a powerfully emotional moment. Not that I'm a filmmaker and I'm not trying to say I know better, but I don't know. Yeah, that scene just, I felt because it had been set up in the second episode and in the previous episode, I kind of felt emotionally shortchanged by that scene.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, so moving on to an emotional scene that did work for me was the Isaiah Bradley memorial. So Sam goes back and he sees Isaiah Bradley again, and right away I just want to say that I loved this entire storyline. I love this entire character throughout the series. I think this was the strongest emotional story within it for me. I really felt for these characters, and I think it was last episode when Sam was talking with Isaiah. That was an example of being really on the nose with the topics and the themes, but it working because it felt real. And yeah, this got to me. It really did. It was another thing where there wasn't a lot of dialogue. It was also not terribly longer than the Bucky and Yori scene. Yeah, you're right. It's Yori scene, and but it worked. Andres, I know you're not a big fan of the Doctor Who revival, but it very much reminded me of the Vincent Van Gogh episode with Matt Smith's Doctor. Court, I know you're like, what the fuck? But there's a beautiful scene where he brings Vincent Van Gogh back to present day, and he's in a museum, and he sees everyone admiring his work, and it's very emotional. Anyway, so it reminded me of that, and it got to me because there wasn't a lot of dialogue, and it was just, for finally, Isaiah Bradley is getting recognition. His name is not going to be lost in the history books, and people will never forget all of the sacrifices and the struggle that he went through for this country.
And
that was great.
Sam literally says that to him. He says, now people will never forget.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I love that. Guys, thoughts on that?
For me, it was one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. When he first, just the reveal, and then Isaiah shakes his hand, gives him a hug. And it was just from an acting standpoint, the first scene we see with Isaiah, played by Carl Lumley, who is just so good. The first scene when they go to his place in, I think it's in Baltimore, and he's like really angry and his face is trembling with rage. And then we get that close-up shot of him when he's hugging Sam and his face is trembling with I guess a mixture of like sadness and gratitude. It was such a nice, even just visual full circle. And I'm not gonna lie, I rolled a couple tears in that scene for sure. Andris, what did you think?
Yes.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Few words have to be said because you guys nailed it. And yeah.
Right. Well, and I'll also mention this. I didn't notice this on my first watch through. But after that scene, essentially the episode's over, except for the mid-credits scene, which I don't even think we need to address. Sharon Carter, power broker, and now she's going to be a supervillain. Okay, whatever. But when it cuts to the credits, the title cards just totally went over my head the first time, but it doesn't say the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It says Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Totally didn't catch that. Didn't catch that. And I am now thinking, and we're going to talk, we're just wrapping this up. We're going to talk about Captain America 4 in a second. It's now looking like, I think they're probably going to do another season of this. I think a lot of us thought that it was going to be a one-off, but they did submit it for the Emmys. They submitted Wanda for Best Limited Series. They didn't do that with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They submitted it for like Best Drama Series, I think. So I think there are plans to go forward with this show.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, I think we're good there. I guess we all enjoyed the show overall. I mean, maybe not our favorite thing in the world, but you know, worth watching.
It was a solid show. If they do another if they do another season, I will definitely watch it. But it also leads. It sounds like even if it's not another season, it sounds like potentially leading into another movie, which is what you brought up, Court. That there was an announcement that there's going to be a Captain America 4, and it's being written and co-produced by the showrunner of this series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Andris, I'm gonna let you go first. Did you hear about this news, or were you aware that they're like right after the season finale premiered, they were like Captain America 4? Did you know about that, or?
No, I just found out right now as you said it.
Well, that's what we know so far. So Captain America 4. We don't know many details. Like I said, it's being produced and written by the guy who ran Falcon and Winter Soldier. So it's not confirmed. It's seeming to indicate that it's going to be Sam Wilson as Captain America.
I mean, considering they ended the show with the title Captain America and the Winter Soldier, I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Yeah,
it'd be pretty shitty if they were just like psych Chris Evans again. But Andris, would you be interested, one, in seeing another season of this show, or in two, would you rather just it be a Captain America 4 movie?
That's a good question, actually. I haven't thought of it. I don't know where I stand because it was a good season. Being 6 episodes long is not a good idea. Because then you lose moments. I don't know.
That's fair. Court, what are your thoughts on the Captain America 4 kind of reveal?
I think it's cool. I think it makes sense. It's been a year where like now some things are starting to come. We have Black Widow coming, and we got the Shang-Chi trailer, which we were going to talk about, and we all kind of forgot about it. And whatever. I don't know anything about the character anyway. So, but I mean, Captain America is a beloved property. I think people really love Anthony Mackie in the role of Sam Wilson. And I think, again, even if I took some issue with the writing of his monologue there, it still felt very Captain America, not Steve Rogers, but very Captain America. Yeah. So give me that movie. Give me a sequel to this series. I'm down.
Yeah, down for both. Yeah.
I will say this. It's very fascinating watching this all roll out right now because I feel like Disney feels exactly what everybody else is feeling. Post Endgame, where do you go from here? Right. They're trying stuff out. They're seeing what they can do because, you could easily make things fall apart. This is a very testy era for you as a franchise, right? With superhero fatigue and what have you. But no, Captain America 4, sure.
Yeah, no, I'm for it, and I agree that I appreciate the seemingly new directions Marvel's going with these shows and movies. So bring it on.
Yeah.
Right on.
All right.
All right, so we're going to move on. We won't spend too much time talking about it because we still have a discussion, but we're going to do a spoilers review of the brand new Mortal Kombat film that came out on Friday, I believe. So before we get into specifics, Andres, I'm going to ask you first, overall thoughts on the movie.
I enjoyed it.
Okay. Chris.
I thought it was all right. It was entertaining during parts while I was watching it. But my wife yesterday, because we watched it Friday night, and yesterday she was just like, I mentioned something to her about it, and she's like, "Oh shit, we watched that yesterday." Like it's kind of entertaining while you watch it, but it's kind of forgettable if I'm honest.
Okay.
That's yeah. Mhm.
Interesting.
I hated this movie. I hated this movie. And I am a fan of the 90s movie. Like, it's not a good movie. It's straight up a terrible film, but it's fun. I don't know. I haven't seen it in many years. Maybe if I watched it again now, I'd hate it. But I don't know. Like, and it's a shame because the opening sequence of this movie I thought was great. It was beautifully shot. It took place in like 1700, like 18th century Japan. It was sort of the kind of like a prologue. I thought it was really well done. The fight was cool, blah, blah, blah. And then we jump into present day, and this movie just fell apart for me. I'm going to throw this out. I don't know if you guys have even seen this movie. I got a very strong Masters of the Universe vibe from this flick. I don't know if that resonates for you guys, but
with Dolph Lundgren.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I can see what you mean by that for sure.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is something I wanted to mention about that opening scene. I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the big what's it called, hype things that they did was they released the first 7 minutes of this film.
Heard about that.
And what was the first 7 minutes? That fight.
Yeah.
Right.
And while I was watching it, I was like, huh, this is great. Oh, this is not so great. Oh, they did that on purpose. I wouldn't be surprised if they literally wrote the opening of the film being like, we're going to put it online. That's going to be a sizzle reel. And then the rest of the film until the last 10 minutes, you don't even.
I purposely avoided watching that because when I dropped, it's like, one, that's a big chunk of movie just to watch beforehand. But I'm glad I didn't watch it because, like you, Court, that was to me the best part of the film. It's a hell of an opening. Set in like feudal Japan. Getting me like, I'm a massive fan of like Kurosawa films, so like I love old samurai movies like that. And just it right off the bat, it set off this really interesting and empathetic conflict between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. I forget what their real names are, but I just know them as Scorpion, Sub-Zero. So I was all for it. And the fights were pretty good. It was well shot. This is something that I'm going to be jumping around a bit. They're like, we don't really need to go beat for beat for this thing. But there was like off and on some fights that were well shot that didn't have a lot of shaky cam. There wasn't a lot of quick cuts. The opening scene is one of them. And then there were plenty of other fights where it was just, it was like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Maybe not like as shaky, but it was as quickly cut. And it's like, yeah. And so you could definitely tell when it's like you had either actors or stuntmen that knew martial arts. Right. And then you had fight scenes when it's actors and stuntmen that didn't know martial arts and they had to cut around it.
Well, I noticed that about the fights too. Not even just the camera and the cutting, but even the choreography. Like some of the fights, the fight between like Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and I think his name was Cole towards the end, that was pretty good. Like the choreography was cool. Then there was that one fight with like Jax and the guy who looks like Goro but only has 2 arms. I don't remember his name.
Not Thor.
That sounds
big guy. Big band. I don't know
whatever his name was. But like I thought that fight looked terrible. Like the choreography, and they were trying to have stupid jokes in there, and it just didn't work at all.
To be fair, they shouldn't have known how to fight because they even put it in there. I think they literally wrote this line from Raiden to explain this and make an excuse where they're like, we don't have enough time to train for this Mortal Kombat.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, no, that's it. It's better that they don't know what they're doing, because it's like watching a 6-year-old with a game controller trying to play Mortal Kombat.
Well, and
Which
go ahead.
I was gonna say, which I suppose could be entertaining for some people, but I went to court. That was one of the fights that didn't really work for me.
And speaking of Raiden's line, and to this film's credit, the Japanese God of Thunder was not played by a white French guy, so that's cool.
Yeah.
But the writing in this movie is atrocious. And listen, I don't go into a Mortal Kombat movie, expecting grand soliloquies or anything like that, but like the writing was really bad.
I mean, to be fair, Mortal Kombat Annihilation exists.
I never saw that one. I never saw that one.
Oh, if you want bad writing, my friend.
I mean, I don't, but
So yeah, I'm gonna just go through like some good things that I liked about it, and then we could share. Maybe Court can't, but we could share some good things we liked about it.
There are a couple. I have a couple things, yeah.
And then we'll talk about the negative things, so we don't like about it. Court will have a lot to say. No, but I didn't hate it, and I think there were elements that were entertaining. Like I said, some of the fight scenes quite worked. Like it really was it was a great bookend. Like the beginning was good, but man, that fight at the end with Sub-Zero and Scorpion proper was killer. I thought that was awesome. I thought it was really cool. It was entertaining. Didn't really care about the main character Cole. He's a new created character for this movie. He's not from the games or anything. Just a wet rag. No offense to the guy, Louis Tan.
Well, what was his superpower? Crappy armor that everybody was impressed by for reasons.
Yeah, dude,
Right.
that's another thing. I'm not in. Look, I played Mortal Kombat a lot as a kid, in like the '90s, but I didn't follow it, so I didn't follow up with it. There's like a million games of it now, so I don't know the lore.
Yeah.
But what the hell? It's like everyone gets a magic ability. Sometimes it gives you like you can shoot fireballs. Sometimes it grows large mechanical arms. What is it? What does it do?
It's the power of the plot.
That's the power of the plot. Yeah.
It's like, how do we explain all these crazy ridiculousnesses that is happening in this universe that they've made a video game for?
Yeah, I didn't follow.
Powers. Yeah. Everybody's got their own magic power. If you got the dragon birthmark.
Well, and there are a couple things that I was texting with a buddy that I want to share, but just for one, with Jax, my buddy was like, because we were talking about like there's so many questions in this movie of like, how does this make sense? How does this make sense? The answer is it doesn't. But he was saying like, how do these essentially monks out in the desert, how do they create mechanical arms for Jax when they have like no scrap metal? And he's like, they have no tech anywhere. He's like, they don't even have doors. I was like, that's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
They're monks who showboat as employees of Cyberdyne Industries building Terminators.
I also found this funny, and I don't think it was intentional. It became so much, but like every single time they introduce a new character, that character has to say, I am Liu Kang, or I am Kano, or I am this, I am that. And it's like, there are other more organic ways to do it. Hey, this is my buddy Kano, just to change it up a little bit,
Man, I know, I agree. Like, it is kind of awkwardly just like, here's my name, in case you didn't know.
Right. And let me show you my magical power.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of Kano, that he was by far my favorite character in
Hell
this.
yeah.
Like, I loved him. I actually, the actor Josh Lawson, I thought he was legitimately good. Not just like good for this movie. I thought he was legitimately good. He was cracking me up. It was mostly during the first half. During the second half, he kind of had less to do, and he was more like, I'll just be the bad guy. But when it was funny because up until this point, everybody was just so lifeless and dull and just, we got to do this. Oh, we got to go there. Oh, my arms are gone. Fuck. But then he comes on and he's just a breath of fresh air with this, like, these sleazy Aussie dirtbag. I loved him. Anybody else agree? Did you like him?
Yes. It was fascinating that they did that with Kano of all characters, because he is a villain. He doesn't really have too much. And they were like, hey, what if we took that minor character and just injected him with all the characterization everybody else is missing in this film?
Yeah. I'm not even sure Josh Lawson is an actor. I think that they just found him drunk in an Australian pub, and they're like, "You'd be good," and he's just pissed to be on the side. I want to fuck him all here. I thought he was great. Easily the most entertaining part for me.
They
Fantastic.
they totally turned him into Captain Boomerang, and I don't just mean that. I don't just mean because he's Australian, but because he was like the comic relief. He was like the brash sort of, swearing all the time. I did think a lot of the swearing in this movie felt really, really, really forced. I'll say that. And I have everyone watching, we swear like sailors. I've got nothing against swearing, but it felt really, really forced in this movie. It worked for him because it fit his character, but like everybody else, it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I liked him. Like I said, most of the other characters, I just didn't care. In fact, all the other characters, I'll say it.
There weren't any other characters.
I didn't get. No, there were. Oh, you know what? There was one other one that I thought this could be interesting, but they didn't give him much to do. But it was the character of Cabal. The guy, Cordy is the guy that had like the Darth Vader mask on.
Oh, okay.
And the knives. He was voiced by Damian Bashir, who played Charles Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
And I don't know if you picked up on a Court, but he had a bit of a personality, and which is funny to say. Like, I know that it sounds like I'm reaching for straws. So I'm like, he had a bit of a personality, but he did. He had some personality, and I was like, I want to see more of him. Obviously, we don't. So we're left with wet rags here, wet rags there.
Well, it was also interesting because he spends most of his time in the movie interacting with Kano. They clearly have like kind of a history, so they kind of just slapped the two characters in the movie together, and then everyone else was just left out in the rain.
It is interesting though, when they go to the part where they start pairing off people to fight, they didn't put, well, then again, Kano was a bad guy at that point, but that would have been the fight to see Kano and Cabal, people with actual history in the context of this film. Like,
yeah, it was, speaking of the pairing ups, my wife brought this up, and I noticed it too right away. They do following the dumb action movie trope of like, oh, we have two women, they got to fight. Like, it just sounds like, oh, there's women, they're got to have a cat fight, and they do it in all the Fast and the Furious movies. I don't like that trope either. I noticed it right away. I'm just like, look, if you're trying to sell us that these are all deadly warriors, that are all badasses, stop making it segregated where it's just like, oh, only the girls can fight each other. Like, I didn't like that.
Let's have some co-ed fighting. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. One of the things, this is both a positive and a con for me, is that I simultaneously liked the moments when there was some good gore, but there just wasn't enough of it. This movie is bloody and it is violent, but a lot of there's blood in it, but it's if you're coming in looking for major kind of like those fatalities, what the franchise is known for, you don't get a lot of them. My favorite undoubtedly is it's not Liu Kang that does it. No, it is Liu Kang. Liu Kang, I believe. No. Kung Lao. Sorry, I mix them up. I apologize. I haven't played these games in forever. But
the Hat Man.
Yeah, the guy that has the Captain America sword hat. He throws it, and it's like spinning like a buzzsaw, and it just cuts some chick in half. And I was like, "Fuck yeah, that's awesome! More of that." But there wasn't a lot of it.
I wanted to point out something interesting. Okay. I don't know if you guys are aware of who made this. Did you guys look into the production company?
No.
Atomic something?
No.
I was curious because their opening crawl or their logo was very fascinating and B-movie-ish. And I was like, who the hell are these guys? What's going on here? These guys make modern horror films. It makes so much sense when you hear that. Like, they made like Conjuring 2 and Annabelle.
Oh, okay.
Dope.
And now it's like, it's like, if you wanted to make a good Mortal Kombat film, you would go to a horror production company because they handle this kind of, because I could sense a lot of it after I realized that there's a lot of horror in it.
Yeah.
Very, dark and tension and gore.
I will say, as far as the blood, like, I don't know if this was all the time. I got the distinct impression that a lot of that blood was digital, and it just did not look good at all. In fact, I think most of the visual effects in this movie looked pretty bad.
I thought, you know what? There was some close-ups of Goro that I thought, for the budget that this had, because it was very clear that this was not a like massively budgeted movie.
True.
I thought Goro looked pretty good. Does anyone agree, or do you think did he look bad?
I didn't like it.
Oh,
I
okay.
was surprised by the backlash that I read about because I didn't follow this film at all, like online. I'd see things here and there. I saw a lot of people complaining about the new Goro design versus the old one, which is done practically by I can't remember who did it, but I know Tom Woodruff Jr. did the suit animation for it. So I'm pretty sure it's one of his companies. I didn't have a problem with the new Goro. I was like, no, it's fine. Looks
No, I'm not even. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the design. I honestly thought the special effects on him, not for the rest of it. There was some really bad kind of green screen at times, but I just looked it up. That for a budget of 55 million, I thought Goro looked pretty solid.
That's fair.
So I liked him.
that's still a giant budget, though.
No. Here's the thing. That's a big budget. We're not saying this is an independent film or anything.
I know.
But compared to Falcon and Winter Soldier, the show cost like 250 million. So
I know.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of other good things about it. I
liked the costumes. The costumes were good.
Costumes are good. You know what I liked? Two things. One is Sub-Zero. I liked Sub-Zero and the fact that they made him kind of menacing. Like there was definitely like when he first appeared, when he was doing the Master of the Universe thing and coming into our world, there's a part where just like people are just chilling at like, I don't know, McDonald's or whatever the hell. And just some frost comes up and it's like, there was like this eerie sort of anticipation of him coming.
Yeah, like a foreboding. Yeah.
He actually felt like, unlike all the other guys, just looked like punching bags. So like, oh, this is going to be fun to fight. He seemed like a formidable foe. And I appreciated that.
They were filming him like a slasher movie character.
Yeah.
That's what it is. No, what I liked is the fact that like in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were leaning heavily on Sub-Zero with the franchise and the shows and everything, and they were making him the good guy. I've never been a Sub-Zero fan myself.
Oh, really?
I love Scorpion. So having Scorpion being the character, well, Scorpion Light, whatever we want to call Cold, whatever his name is, having that bloodline be the carrying thing I liked that a lot. And cool. And I did like them just making Sub-Zero be a bad guy because I think he works better as a villain than as a hero. I mean,
totally.
He's creepy and menacing and awesome. And he
I was able to appreciate some of the lore in the movie, particularly between Scorpion and Sub-Zero. I will say, and I feel like this was a missed opportunity personally, because if they had done it, it would have been my favorite part of the movie. At the end, after Cole and Scorpion vanquish Sub-Zero, which again was a cool fight, Scorpion comes over to Cole and he's talking to him in Japanese, it's subtitled, and he's saying, like, protect my bloodline, blah, blah, blah. And if it just cut to Cole going, I don't speak Japanese.
That's what I was thinking the whole time.
I wanted it so badly.
That would have been fun though. And this movie took itself very seriously.
Yeah.
Very seriously.
Or just like he turns to me, he's like, who the fuck are you?
Like, did you catch that? What the fuck who's that guy? Yeah, no, that would have been hilarious. One last thing that I actually did like is I thought the music was good. I actually noticed the music. The music is by a guy named Benjamin Wallfish.
That sounds familiar.
He did it. He's done a couple things. He did the recent Invisible Man. He did Shazam, and he did the music for both It movies, the recent ones.
That's why I know it. Okay, there it is.
And last thing is he co-wrote the music with Hans Zimmer for Blade Runner 2049. Ooh. And that's actually what really resonated, because there was a lot of like kind of synthy sounds.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I'm not saying this is like best score of the year or anything, but for a lot of movies like of this ilk, I think the score would just go over my head. But I actually stopped and was like, this is pretty cool. Like I kind of dug it. So that was one thing I thought.
A lot of soundtracks these days, they do kind of tend to be background noise. And
yes,
this one though, it did stand out. And when they brought out the Mortal Kombat theme, it was like goosebumps. Hell yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I got a little thrill when that happened for sure.
Okay.
Chris, you were saying that this movie takes itself very seriously, and one of my biggest problems with it was like the old movie is bad and it's stupid, but it's fun. I didn't have any fun with this film. I don't know if I told you guys this. It took me 2 tries to watch this movie. I got about an hour in yesterday, and I was just like, I'm just done. I'm tired. I'm bored. and getting back through it today, it felt like a chore.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the big, I don't blame you, because one of the big problems I had with this is I watched it in, I think, an ideal situation. I mean, maybe being in the theater would have been better, but I watched it. It was a Friday night. I had a couple beers while watching it. And even then, there were definitely stretches where I just got bored. Like I was actually riding with it for a bit, but it got to a point where I was just like, eh. One of the big problems that I had with it, besides it, one is, it obviously has zero characterization, save for Kano, and even then, he's not like a well-developed character. He's defined as a character, but there's not much to him.
Right.
This movie really, it's going to sound weird, but this can be a textbook definition for future screenwriters of the difference between plot and story. Ooh. So, story, just to kind of put it into like a helpful way, story would be a king and queen died. Plot is the king was murdered and the queen died of grief. So story is essentially like all the lore, all the backstory, essentially what happens if you were to give a synopsis. Plot is essentially what happens in the movie. And there's a shit ton of story in this movie, but no plot.
Right.
There's nothing. It's just people sitting around talking about all this backstory, all this lore. He comes from this realm and he does this, this, and that, this, and that. But what are they doing? They're nothing. They're sitting and talking, then they fight for a bit. So there's too much story and not enough plot in this damn thing.
I agree. Another big thing is the fact that there's like the bad people of the outer realm, and they're like, or outer world or odd world, wherever they're from. They kept being like, we gotta defeat them or else they're gonna take over. And I keep thinking, what's to stop them? Like literally one dude was like, I have an army. And you're like, well then invade. What is the MacGuffin preventing you from doing what you're saying?
And you know what? That's true. And here's another, I got to the end of the movie and I was like, wait, so they're not gonna have
an actual tournament,
right? You're not going to have Mortal Kombat in your Mortal Kombat movie,
right?
You're just going to set up a sequel. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, no, sorry everyone. If you're looking forward to a Mortal Kombat tournament, this wasn't it. It's I don't understand, because I think that literally all that fans want, what I would have wanted, is just make fucking Enter the Dragon, but with Mortal Kombat. There's something cool. It's a fun. It's a tried and true story. Not obviously like there's. Be creative, do your own thing. However, I think people just want to see established characters in this like pyramid, in this, just like they fight. There's something cathartic about that journey of going through a fighting tournament. And it could have worked. Enter the Dragon with Mortal Kombat. But it wasn't here. It was literally bad guys just sneak attack fighting before there was a Mortal Kombat. And it led to the point where what could have been like really interesting one-on-one fights, or even like 2-on-1 or whatever, ended up being a bunch of one-on-one fights happening all at once, being intercut. It was like Jax is fighting someone, then Liu Kang is fighting someing, then Cole is fighting someone, all at the same time.
And all in different places too, because some of them are at the temple, and then Cole's back at home in Kansas or whatever the fuck, fighting Goro. And that was so like jarring and confusing. And
it was funny though, because it was such a clunky, obvious, we want to have these fights in different locations like you get in the game. How do we do this? Oh, hey, Raiden can teleport people.
Yeah.
There it goes. And it's funny because the Wes Anderson movie, I like the Wes Anderson Mortal Kombat better than his later work.
You mean the Paul Tom? You're talking about the Paul Tom? Oh,
nope, they're the same director. Yes, I'm making a joke. Anyway, at least in that old one, you had concise, here's the scene between this character and this character. And the fight's over and there's a fatality. Here's the scene with this character and this character. And it ends and there's a fatality. It's like, it's bad when that one is like still dunking on this one, because you're like, you've had how many decades to get it right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing too. Like, I've already gone off on the dialogue, but just like the fact that there was a moment where Kano turns to the camera and goes like, Kano wins.
Yeah. I loved that.
Or like fucking not Liu Kang, who's the hat guy?
Kung Lao.
When he does the buzzsaw thing and he just looks at the camera and goes like, fatality. I was just like,
I
Yeah.
loved that.
Stop
I
it.
loved it. I loved
They
it.
did
Hated
it
it.
all the time. It's like flawless victory.
Yeah.
It
So
was
and so like, okay.
I
we
loved
get
it because it was terrible. I was like, yes, give me that. Ooh, that hurts.
Yeah.
So good.
I'm not sure what much else to say. Like I said, there were elements that I liked about it. There were some fight scenes that I quite liked. Mostly the beginning and the ending I thought were the best fights. But there was some entertainment throughout. I liked the lizard guy. I liked Kano a lot through most of it. But yeah, mostly it was just boring. It did get very boring through like the middle towards the end as well. And when it got to the point of everyone fighting, I was just like, I don't give a shit, because it was all happening at once and it was too quick cut, and I just didn't care. When they slowed down and had one-on-one fights, like the beginning and the end, it worked. But oddly enough, you know what? I'd see a sequel. Honestly, I'd see a sequel. They tease Johnny Cage coming. He's a very charismatic. Shut up. He's
I've never
how dare
liked
you?
Johnny Cage. Never been a fan.
He's at least has a personality in the games compared to Cole Young, whoever
His
that guy is.
personality is having a pair of sunglasses. That's not a personality.
That's a fair point. I'd see a sequel. Especially if they actually have a Mortal Kombat in this Mortal Kombat movie. But I'm not dying for it. Like if tomorrow they're like, you know what, no sequel, it's fine.
Mortal
probably-
Kombat, the actual combat.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't watch this again anytime soon. But
I'm never watching this thing again.
if you're a fan of the games, I think this is worth checking out. If you have HBO Max and you were bored, just want to watch something that's new, specifically like what's new, just check it out if you're interested in some action. It's not great. It's not really even good, but it's not bad. It's just kind of very much in the middle for me.
It's dumb fun, and that's what I like.
It's dumb. I agree. I'm just shitting on this movie.
That's
really
not
didn't like
fine.
it.
That's fair, man.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
All right, so that's for the review. We're going to just quickly have our little Andris discussion of the week. Andris, do you
Yes.
want to give us the question one last time? Obviously, this came up because Mortal Kombat is a video game movie, so please.
Yeah, this is very fitting. I usually dress these up with like words, but here it is. Just like Mortal Kombat, the question is very stripped down. What video game do you feel is primed for a film adaptation?
Chris, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, my original answer was going to be my favorite video game franchise of all time, Legend of Zelda. However,
Ooh.
I as much as I love Zelda, I don't know if a movie is really where I would want it to be translated to. I think that there's so much to it. There was talks of a Netflix show potentially happening, something like that. I think could work really well. So if it's going to be literal about a video game that I think would make for a good movie, just 2 hour, two an hour and some change movie, for me it would be BioShock. I love the BioShock series. And if for anybody who hasn't played it, it's a wonderful amalgamation of kind of like film noir aesthetics with horror and sci-fi. So essentially the first two games take place in an underwater city utopia called Rapture. And it's like way down into the ocean. And so you get, and it's set in like, it was built around the 40s and 50s. So you get kind of like this old school kind of film noir aesthetic of like these neon lights and everyone's dressed kind of like, from the 50s. And it's got like that jazz club to it, but all like it has like these massive windows and you look out and there's just like an effing whale just swimming by. So it's like this really beautiful, like aesthetically gorgeous video game with an interesting kind of setting and concept. And it could really work. It has a lot of lore, but it could also work just as a direct adaptation of the first game, which is kind of just like this guy is stuck in this now run down underwater city. And he has to fight for survival because there was like this drug that was going around and it sort of like made a lot of people very crazy and gave him like superhuman abilities. It's a hell of a time. It's a really great game. And I think that it's one of those that already takes so much inspiration from film history that it just seems like a perfect, it seems like it's an obvious fit to now like reinterpret that into a movie. So that's my pick.
Cool.
Groovy.
I guess I should go next.
Sure. Yeah.
It's your question. I think you should round us out here. But
All right.
so as I mentioned up top, I am cheating a little bit in two ways. I'm not saying movie, I'm saying series,
Oh my god.
Oh,
and it's already happening. I'm pretty sure you
Oh,
guys know
okay.
where I'm
All
going
right.
with this.
All right. All right.
It's The Last of Us. The Last of
Mhm.
Us is my all-time favorite video game.
Mhm.
And I only played it for the first time about a year ago. It just blew my mind. I have never had an emotional connection to a video game anywhere close to what I had with this. This game made me laugh. It made me cry a number of times. The story is absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
It's scary. It's haunting. It's just incredible. And it's being made now for HBO, which is a great start. It's being done by the showrunner of Chernobyl. Chernobyl was amazing.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Chernobyl has like an almost post-apocalyptic feel to it because it is
Mhm.
kind of an apocalypse in its own right.
Mhm.
This game has the same thing. They're also bringing in the writer director of the original game, Neil Druckmann. He's going to be an executive producer and he's going to write on the series.
Nice.
I think this is
mercy.
going. Say what?
I said mercy.
Yes, I think this thing is going to be a slam dunk. They have announced, again in the game you play as Joel. I don't want to give too much away, but it's interesting. The plot of the game is very much like The Mandalorian in a specific way, but you play as Joel, who gets this charge of this 13-year-old girl Ellie, and he has to take her across the country, and they don't like each other, but then they form a bond, and it becomes like a kind of father-daughter kind of thing. And like playing as Joel, I fell in love with this character of Ellie. There was a scene where we got split up, and I was like worried, like I had this crazy paternal instinct.
Mhm.
And I would love to see that play out on screen, but they've cast, and these aren't the people I would have cast necessarily, and it's not because they don't look like them.
Mhm.
They just, I don't know, I can't articulate quite why it is, but Pedro Pascal is playing Joel.
Mhm.
And which is why it's funny, because it's kind of a similar plot to Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And
He's the guy you go to for that, apparently.
right. And Bella Ramsey is going to be playing Ellie. And if Bella Ramsey's name doesn't sound familiar, she was on Game of Thrones. She was the little bear who was Lyanna Mormont. I don't know if you guys know him. You refuse
No, I know
to
exactly.
call.
Yeah.
She was fantastic on that. She was not good in Holmes and Watson, but that movie was god awful. So
She was in that?
yeah, just a tiny little, she's like a little street urchin, the foul mouse street urchin.
I don't even remember that. Wow.
Well, it's not a very memorable film.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm super psyched for this. I can't wait. And yeah, Andris, bring it home.
I had to think a lot about this one. I think Tetris would be. I'm kidding.
Oh
I'm not-
yeah. Get Adam
No.
Sandler in there.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, no! Not another Pixels.
I never actually saw Pixels.
Keep it that way.
Yeah.
I never saw it either, and you know.
Yeah.
No, what I was gonna say though, Chris, is BioShock a post-apocalyptic film? I mean, game.
No, it feels like it, but it really is only relegated to just this underwater society. So it's not like the world above is affected by it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because if it would have been, it was about to be all of us doing post-apocalyptic properties.
Mm.
I'm gonna go with Fallout.
Yeah.
The Fallout games have it's a franchise, and it's got such a ridiculously detailed and complex universe of characters and factions and creatures and stories, and it's got a lot of charm, and I feel like a lot of good could be done with it as a film. There's been talks many times. They've approached Bethesda about making a film. I don't know how far the talks have gone, but I don't even know how to explain Fallout aside from it's a post-apocalypse. There's Jesus Christ. It's a post-apocalypse. There's vaults, and
there are vaults.
You're selling it real hard right now, man.
If you're into some vault action, oh boy.
Fallout would be a good movie. Yeah.
No, I think that's a really good choice. Both of you guys, good choice. Fallout, there's so much to it, and there's like, I think like 5-ish games. They have like kind of spin-offs and stuff.
Yeah.
But it has it's post-apocalyptic, but it also has like a kind of a quirky,
It's got a
humorous edge to it.
Yeah, it's got a style all its own that
Yeah.
could easily be replicated cinematically.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm all for it. I'd be definitely down. Oh, is it Walmart?
at 6:07 p.m. I'm getting groceries today, ladies
Oh,
and
yeah.
gentlemen. This boy is gonna be eating.
All right.
So do you want to take off and we'll finish the show for you, or I mean, we're just about done here, so.
I think.
Oh no, he's arriving at 6:07 p.m. and it's 5:42 p.m.
Oh,
Okay,
right,
so we get
right.
time.
Shot this.
You're in a different time zone. Well, either way, that's pretty much the show that we've got for you guys today. So before we sign off, Chris, do you want to let people know where they can follow you online?
Yeah, I have an Instagram page called Art of Light and Shadow. Just kind of a fun cinema club, just going through all the movies that I'm watching this year, having a lot of great discussions of classic films, modern films, obscure movies. It's a lot of fun.
And Andris, what about you?
Do a YouTube search for Cheap Thrills Unspeakable Terror. I do reviews of sci-fi and horror films from the dawn of cinema to the modern era.
And of course, you guys are already on my YouTube channel, but if you haven't hit subscribe already, I'd highly recommend it. Wouldn't recommend it. I'd appreciate it. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Courtshake. So that is the show. Again, we'd love it if you guys would subscribe, drop a like, share it, jump down in the comments, tell us what did you think of Mortal Kombat? Do you want to see Captain America 4? Anything like that. Again, I read all the comments. I respond to as many of them as I can. So it's definitely getting read. And we would like to say we will see you next week. And we hope you guys are all safe and healthy in this time. And check you out next week.
All right.
Take care,
Hey,
everybody.
guys. Later.